What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Here's a quick synopsis. A young Furiosa is taken from the Green Place and left with Dementis, an insane warlord, and attempts to find her way home. The film stars Anya Taylor Joy, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Burke, Charlie Fraser, and Elijah Brown. Standout performances. Anya Taylor Joy is only 28 years old, yet her career has already had multiple evolutions. In the early days, she was a horror queen with The Witch and Split in 2020. She did both a prestige TV show with The Queen's Gambit and a period piece comedy with Emma. She was nominated for numerous awards for both performances. 2022 for me is so far her best year as an actress, with the Viking epic The Northman and the satire The Menu. With Furiosa, she attempts and succeeds in becoming a full-blown action star. And here's my view on the performance. Some like me will appreciate the subtlety and the difficulties of playing a character like Furiosa, who does not talk a lot in the movie and is not given a great speech, and others will be left wanting more. It's eerily similar to Tom Hardy as Max in Fury Road. He plays a stoic character with not a lot to say, and you can say the same thing about Taylor Joy as Furiosa, and you can also go all the way back to when Mel Gibson played Max in Road Warrior. Here's what Taylor Joy herself told Kyle Buchanan of the New York Times about the lack of dialogue for Furiosa. Quote, "I do want to 100% preface this by saying I love George, and if you're going to do something like this, you want to be in the hands of someone like George Miller. But he had a very, very strict idea of what Furiosa's war face looked like, and that only allowed me my eyes for a large portion of the movie. It was very much mouth closed, no emotion, speak with your eyes. That's it. That's all you have." I am a really strong advocate for female rage. We're animals, and there's a point where somebody just snaps. There's one scream in that movie, and I am not joking when I tell you that I fought for that scream for 3 months. With George, it's a long game. End quote. My take on this is maybe being the lead of a George Miller directed movie isn't great if you're looking for your character to have a cathartic moment. He puts in reasons for his characters not to speak. In Fury Road, Max's jaw is chained up. In Furiosa, Furiosa is in disguise. Here's what Miller himself told the New York Times about the silence of his main characters. Quote, "If you look at the classic, almost inevitably male heroes, going back to John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, they're usually very laconic. The mute performances delivered by Holly Hunter in the piano and Jane Wyman and Johnny Belinda won both of them Oscars. When you've got someone with a lot going on and they're silent, the audience is getting a hold of a lot of stuff. It's that thing that you can really do only in cinema." End quote. Anya Taylor Joy does not give a prototypical leading performance in movies, and I'm here to say that that's okay, and I think that she was brilliant in the film. Taylor Joy will next star in The Gorge with Miles Teller and Sigourney Weaver, and Sacrifice with Chris Evans, Brendan Fraser, and Selma Hayek. Joy's co-star in Furiosa, Chris Hemsworth, is of course best known for playing the God of Thunder, Thor, in the Marvel movies since 2010, and Furiosa gives the actor most associated with playing a hero a chance to play the big bad. He's the perfect fit for Dementis because he's allowed to bring humor to the role within the large amount of dialogue he's given. He's doing what he's best suited to do. It's hard not to look at the character as a remark upon people unfit to be in charge, and some are saying that this is Hemsworth's best performance. I still think it's Avengers Infinity War, but it's definitely in the top 3 with Infinity War and the underrated Rush. As many of you know, Marvel movies have been criticized by big-time filmmakers such as Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola, and Hemsworth himself has responded, telling Jonathan Dean of the Times of London, quote, "It felt really harsh, especially from heroes. It was an eye roll from me. People bashing the superhero space. Those guys had films that didn't work too. We all have. When they talked about what was wrong with superheroes, I thought, cool. Tell that to the billions who watch them. Were they all wrong? Cinema going did not change because of superheroes, but because of smartphones and social media. Superhero films actually kept people in the cinemas during that transition, and now people are coming back, so they deserve a little more appreciation, end quote. There's a lot to unpack there. I agree with a lot of what Chris Hemsworth is saying there, and he's just a guy who just wants respect from the big-time filmmakers. He, of course, wants to be in a Martin Scorsese movie. He, of course, wants to be in a movie directed by Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, this is a guy who had to hear when Quentin Tarantino said that Marvel has not produced movie stars. I mean, that has to hurt from somebody who wants to be respected and end up working with these kind of legendary filmmakers. And I'll defend Hemsworth by saying this: he has proven with movies like Furiosa that he can be more than just Thor. Hemsworth will next be the voice of Optimus Prime in the animated movie Transformers 1 with Brian Tyree Henry and Scarlett Johansson, and there's talks of Thor 5. I hope the character gets the perfect send-off. And finally, Tom Burke has become one of my favorite supporting actors. He's a scene stealer of the highest order. His filmography includes 2019's The Souvenir, 2020's Mank, where he plays the larger-than-life Orson Welles, and Living and Wonder, both in 2022. In Furiosa, Burke plays Praetorian Jack, who is an ally and mentor to Furiosa. It's impressive the chemistry Burke had with Joy, given the lack of dialogue between the two. The role was originally going to be played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen from the Trial of the Chicago 7, but then he dropped out of the project, and I think they ended up with the right guy. Tom Burke just feels like somebody who belongs in the Mad Max universe. Burke will next have a role in the movie The Black Bag with Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett, directed by Steven Soderbergh. The reviews of Furiosa Mad Max Saga have been interesting to say the least. Some have said the movie is too similar to Fury Road, and others have said it's not similar enough, that they wanted more of that same breakneck pace that was in Fury Road, and you get that, but you also get more world building, which I appreciated. I mean, we talk all the time about these big blockbusters not being more detailed oriented. Like, this is a movie that tried to give you more details, to give you an insight of what the director was thinking with where the story was going. It was trying to be uber specific. I mean, there are so many big blockbusters that are lazy and they just go, here's the plot, here's the hero, enjoy the movie. Furiosa was trying to be more than that, and I think it reached that. It was more than that to me, and that's a good thing. That's what I want from blockbusters. Yes, I want the spectacular action sequences and the car chases, but I also want details, and this movie gives you a lot of good details about the world of Mad Max and Furiosa. I don't think enough people are talking about how big of a challenge this movie is. There are very few franchises that have had to recast major characters. First, they transitioned from Mel Gibson's Mad Max to Tom Hardy's in Fury Road, and now you go from Charlize Theron to Anya Taylor Joy. Other recent examples include James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender taking over the roles of Professor X and Magneto respectively. With new iterations of characters, it's impossible to please everyone. I also think it's hard to do origin stories and show why a character is the way they are. Just look at Solo and how many people were upset with that film. The difference between this movie and Mad Max Fury Road is you didn't need to learn more from the character of Mad Max and Fury Road because we all had a history of the character. We knew he lost his wife and child, and we knew everything we needed to know about the character. With Furiosa, you needed more details. There wasn't that much revealed about the character other than that she was from the Greenland in Fury Road. So this movie had to do two things. It had to give you that exciting action, and it also had to give you the backstory of Furiosa, and I think it did the mix of those two things very well, although I know a lot of you disagree. One of the biggest complaints I've heard about this movie is that Anya Taylor Joy's version of the character doesn't appear until an hour into the movie. There is a younger actress, Lila Brown, playing the younger version of Furiosa, and some people feel like she was on screen for far too long, and I understand that line of thinking. We all want to see the major movie star in Anya Taylor Taylor Joy arrive. But once she gets there, the movie gets going in a big way, and I think you needed that backstory to further develop Furiosa as a character you want to root for. What personally draws me most to the Mad Max franchise isn't the spectacular action sequences, it's the structure of these movies. George Miller clearly has no interest in exposition, something that clearly bogs down most modern blockbusters. He also clearly respects the audiences. Yes, there's simplicity in these movies, but there's also some grand ideas. You could never watch one of these movies and in the middle of it say to yourself, I know where this is going. Like, you just don't know. There are some real surprises and thrills in every single one of the Mad Max movies, and that's what makes it one of the best franchises, for me anyway. With Furiosa's release, many people are revisiting Fury Road, not only due to its cultural relevance, but also because of the famous feud between its two stars, Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron, and George Miller himself has chimed in on their tumultuous relationship, telling Robbie Colin with the Telegraph, quote, they were just two very different performers. Tom has a damage to him, but also a brilliance that comes with it, and whatever was going on with him at the time, he had to be coaxed out of his trailer, whereas Charlize was incredibly disciplined, a dancer by training, which told in the precision of her performance, and always the first one on set. I'm an optimist, so I saw their behavior as mirroring their characters, where they had to learn to cooperate in order to ensure mutual survival. There's no excuse for it, and I think there's a tendency in this business to use great performances as an excuse for other disruption that could be avoided, end quote. This feud between Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron will live forever in Mad Max lore because despite them not getting along, they came together to make a perfect action movie. I personally just find it wild we may never see these two play these characters again. I want to see Tom Hardy play Mad Max again. I think it is a franchise best suited for Tom Hardy because he is an actor who, if you've seen in his movies, doesn't want to talk a lot. He wants to be a silent hero, and that's why Mad Max is the perfect role for him. And Charlize Theron, we all want to see her play Furiosa again. I believe she should have gotten an Oscar nomination for her performance in Mad Max Fury Road. It's far and away the best performance of her career. Getting back to Furiosa, I don't at all want to spoil this movie. What I will say is it has, in my opinion, the best ending of the year. The final moments between Anya Taylor Joy's Furiosa and Chris Hemsworth's Dementis are incredible, and it has a lot to say about a recurring theme in this franchise, revenge. The movie's momentum builds towards this face-off between its two stars, and the outcome is perfection. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. No one knows how to structurally make these kind of movies better than George Miller. In the hands of a lesser filmmaker, the movie would end with her getting rid of the bad guy in a huge celebration, but that's not the case for Furiosa. This movie's ending will have you thinking for a long time. Oscar chances. Mad Max Fury Road got a Best Picture nomination, and George Miller received a Best Director nomination as well. And I could see a world where Furiosa gets the same accolades because of how well made it is. You just never know how the Academy will receive these big studio movies. As for the performances, there's absolutely zero chances of either Taylor Joy or Hemsworth getting nominations for their performances. I don't think a performance from a Mad Max movie is ever going to get a nomination. If Charlize Theron can't get nominated for her work in Fury Road, then no one can. Box office. All the talk about this movie online is about its underperformance in movie theaters, and in one respect, I couldn't care less. I just wanted the movie to be good, and thankfully it's more than good, it's great. I also just don't view Mad Max as a franchise that guarantees you a hit. It's not Jurassic Park or Planet of the Apes. It comes from humbling beginnings. The problem is the stakes are higher. Furiosa cost $170 million to make, and it doesn't seem likely that it's going to match the total from Fury Road, which was over $340 million at the box office. And I know there are many of you who don't care about box office talk, and you'll say things like, like, what do you care if the movie makes money or not? And the reason that I care is because I want this franchise to continue. I want to see these actors play these characters again, and I want George Miller to be given a lot of money to make whatever he wants, because he's a director with a clear vision, something that Hollywood is lacking big time nowadays. I desperately want there to be future installments of the Mad Max franchise. Like I was saying, I want to see Tom Hardy return to the character. I want to see Charlize Theron possibly return to the character. Overall, in the long term, I believe Furiosa, like Fury Road, will grow in status over time. Right now, I can watch it and appreciate it, but after rewatches, I suspect I will see more of its greatness and appreciate it. What I want moving forward is to see more of Anya Taylor Joy play the character of Furiosa, and I don't know what the chances of that are due to the box office results, but that's what was great about this franchise, is that you had Mel Gibson getting to play Max 3 times and to build the character up. I wanted Hardy to have the same chance. I wanted Theron to have the same chance. I think that Anya Taylor Joy should be given the chance to play this character again. If I had to guess, my feeling is this is going to be a one and done, that she'll never return to the character because of the box office results, that she won't be given that chance. I don't know if George Miller is going to be given a chance to make more Mad Max movies. And if he is, will he be asked to scale it back down to its original form, and then it will no longer feel like a modern Mad Max movie? There's going to be a million think pieces about why this movie wasn't a bigger hit. I mean, Fury Road was a modest hit, making $340 million. It's not a franchise that was ever going to produce a billion-dollar movie. It's not a Marvel film. It's not based on a comic book character. I mean, this franchise's height was in the 1980s, and it's had one movie in the past 3 decades. That was in 2015. And even then, that's remembered by older movie audiences. They're not younger people out there that have a history with this character. And then you could say, even if there are people who have a history with the Mad Max character, how many people have a history with the Furiosa character who's only appeared in one movie before this? Like, there's not that long, rich history like we have with Mad Max, where it's been played by 2 mega movie stars in Mel Gibson and Tom Hardy. All we have our history with Furiosa is Charlize Theron as Furiosa in Fury Road. That's all we have. I feel like people think that there should be this long, rich history with these movies because it's called a Mad Max Saga. The truth is, there's one movie before this with Furiosa. And I know there are people online and there are people who will write articles and say that the answer was simple. If you had just made a sequel with Charlize Theron as the main character, or if you had de-aged her and the movie starred her, that the movie would make more money. Yes, I think that's a fair point. Charlize Theron is a bigger movie star at this point than Anya Taylor Joy. But what I like about this movie is I thought it was the perfect situation to have a young rising star play this character. And Taylor Joy proved more than up to the task. I mean, by the end, she felt like she could become that Furiosa from Fury Road. That's the point of prequels. I know people get bugged when younger actors play younger versions of iconic characters. I get it. That can be annoying at times. And we have the history of it with Solo. So many people were annoyed by Alden Ehrenreich. But if that movie was better, it would be getting so much praise. And I like Solo. It's a decent movie. But the movie didn't turn out very well. That's not the case with Furiosa. It is a super well-made film with 2 outstanding performances at the center of it. And I think it's being unfairly criticized because it's a prequel to one of the best movies of all time and because of its lackluster box office performance. That has nothing to do with the quality of the movie itself. I still feel like George Miller as a director is at the top of his game. I know some people have an issue with the CGI-ness of this film. I didn't have that problem. I thought visually it's more interesting than any blockbuster I've seen recently. And if you watch the film's ending and are not moved by it at all, I don't know what to tell you. I thought it was spectacular. This movie lived up to the hype, and I had so much hype around this. One of my favorite actresses playing one of my favorite roles in a movie ever. I had a lot riding on this movie, and again, it lived up to my expectations, and that's all I could ask for. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about writer-director Sam Esmail's Leave the World Behind, starring Julia Roberts, Mahershala Ali, and Ethan Hawke. So tune into that, and please rate, review, and subscribe.